Good day everyone, and welcome to the channel. It's Londononion here with some housekeeping and cleaner revisits. We had recently gone through a series of role-based deck builds for each cleaner. However, with our recent updates and card changes, there are some slight modifications to make. First, we will briefly go through the deck builds and rationale for the cleaners of discussion, then discuss our changes and why. So the first cleaner we will look at is Evangelo. Now I had him built with a prowess for mobility, stamina, and general combat effectiveness with SMGs. His deck build was Mag Carrier, Shredder, Vanguard, Battle Lust, Wounded Animal, Cross Trainers, Reload Drills, Energy Drink, Fleet of Foot, Mandatory PT, Speed Demon, Hellfire, Marathon Runner, Ammo Belt, and Combat Knife. With the way I have him built, Evangelo experiences the most difficulty with tough enemies and bosses. The goal is not necessarily to make him good at everything, as this would naturally subtract from his synergistic cards. However, the only card I would alter on his build is Combat Knife, and either replace it with Silver Bullets for added damage, or more preferably, Phosphorus Tipped, one of our new cards. Evangelo is not necessarily a stand and shoot cleaner. His mobility and stamina are his greatest strengths. At least with Phosphorus Tipped, regardless of its probabilities for activation, it incentivizes more of a stick and move combat pattern while damage accrues. Now, I wouldn't call this much of a game changer for Evangelo, nor will it alter what was discussed in our cleaner synergy review of Act 1. But I would argue that it will increase his efficacy against bosses and tough mutations. Moving on, next we have Jim. He was built to issue out high weak spot damage, ideally using sniper rifles with some affinity for general bullet damage. Jim is almost a glass cannon, making him extremely effective against tough enemies, but limited in effectiveness against hordes. His deck build was Ridden Slayer, Hyper-Focused, Tunnel Vision, Reckless Strategy, March for Death, Knowledge is Power, Ammo Belt, Cold Brew Coffee, Hunker Down, Controlled Movement, Down in Front, Patient Hunter, Confident Killer, Reload Drills, and Admin Reload. Now, I don't have many narrow build cleaners like Jim, but I enjoy his effectiveness more than his detriments, which is naturally having a lack of defenses and health preservation. Not to mention, proper positioning and by extension protection on a team should optimize his abilities. Now, the only card I would change is Admin Reload, and I would replace it with Empowered Assault, which guarantees stumbling a given mutation after successfully eliminating a previous mutation. It also grants one's team 5% stumble damage. Next we have Heng. Heng was our jack-of-all-trades cleaner, and as the title implies, he is intended to be the most generally effective cleaner. He doesn't have any particular specialization, but rather attains a series of bonuses through his team, food from the environment, and of course his own build. His build consisted of high-vis sights, shooting gloves, front sight focus, cold brew coffee, Vanguard, confident killer, line 'em up, battle lust, bounty hunter, money grubbers, copper scavenger, life insurance, food scavenger, cross trainers, and energy drink. Most of his card selections have an assortment of buffs, or have an orientation to benefiting from team successes, i.e. eliminating mutations, collecting copper, and consuming food. Overall, this makes Heng even more effective over time. A natural recess in his abilities is that he does not have a specialized loadout or area of exceptional strength. But in my experience, this is a double-edged sword. He has little definition, but can alter his role/loadout depending on needs and level demands. Whether one wishes to issue higher damage with snipers or control crowds with LMGs, Heng can adapt himself to any weapon class, but won't match the other cleaner archetypes in their given loadouts and abilities. Now, some of you can probably guess what changes I would consider. Given his abilities regarding food, I choose to employ Wasteland Chef, which allows one to create health-restoring food with the bash input. Using the combat knife increases the odds of creating a gourmet dinner, which heals both health and trauma over a mediocre meal that only restores health. Naturally, I also employ combat knife to maximize his potential healing options. Now, I would consider this to be an optional build. I personally would not place him in a leader position with Wasteland Chef, since his focus will most likely be on potentially healing his team as a team supporter. As a jack of all trades, I would say it is also worth considering giving Heng more of an offensive edge as another option. This could include increasing his proficiency with melee weapons using Brazen or Slugger. If going with firearm related buffs, then Shredder, Silver Bullets, combat training, or high caliber rounds will also do. Though personally, I prefer to keep Heng well-rounded with stamina related buffs, if not going with Wasteland Chef and combat knife. Now, with all that said about Heng, it's really difficult to say which cards I would switch out for, well, preferential alternatives. As a jack of all trades, I would say that his build is probably the most open compared to other cleaners, so really it is a matter of picking which options one feels they can do without, in replacement of the other preferential cards we discussed. Me personally, I like to keep virtually everything the same. However, I would play with cross trainers and energy drink, since Heng is also rather likely to get stamina from the food items that can be consumed in each level. But that is just my take. Now lastly, we'll move on to Sharice. Sharice, plain and simple, was intended to be a tank class with a strong orientation to melee weapons, health preservation, and damage resistance. Her deck build consisted of Wounded Animal, Brazen, Cross Trainers, Adrenaline Fueled, Vanguard, Body Armor, Spiky Bits, Durable, Mean Drunk, Scar Tissue, Ignore the Pain, Battle Lust, Face Your Fears, Well Rested, and Defensive Maneuver. Whether facing off against Ridden or mutations, Sharice bounces back from knockback damage and restores herself without issue. Crescendos and demands on longevity come easy to her. Bosses, however, are where she falls short without the right preparation/support. Now, the only alteration I would make to her build is replacing Wounded Animal with one of our new cards, Hazmat Specialist. I would consider Acid Resistance to be the next best defense from damage, which will increase her efficacy against the Reeker family. Additionally, this will incentivize her use of bait jars, particularly against bosses, since they are her greatest challenge. Now, some of you might question why I wouldn't employ Cleansing Fire. If you ask me, fire is to cleaners as acid is to Ridden. Now obviously there is a loophole in there, but typically fire is a human weapon, or at most an environmental hazard. So I don't see the need to employ this card, unless one is running some sort of pyro-related build. But that is just my take. Otherwise, that essentially concludes our housekeeping for today. But as new updates come in, we may have more revisits in the future. In our next video, we'll be looking into Tala as our newest cleaner to the roster, and determine her role-based build and designation. It's been Londononion, and I will see you guys next time.